Visit atwsource.com to take the next step along your path of awakening. You're listening to Awakening Truth, worldwide radio, and its network of radio shows, presented by the teachers of Awakening Truth Worldwide, where spirituality, truth, and consciousness collide.
Welcome to A Guiding Light. I'm Dr. Joseph Marra, and I'll be your host for the next 2 hours or so. We have a special event tonight. Since we have so many unique guests, and due to the rapid changes that are before us, we'll be running double headers, most Sundays, if not every Sunday, from tonight onward. In the first hour, I'll be joined by Michael Tellinger, and the second hour, we will be joined by Tolec from the Andromedan Council. And we may have Teri Ippoliti on to channel the Andromedan if Blog Talk allows us to be on longer than 2 hours tonight, which is new to me, so we're going to try it out. So, first up, Michael Tellinger and I will be discussing everyone's perception of the change in the air. Will this change come soon? Who is on the front lines of this change? And is there any evidence that real people are working for this change? Tune in as we discuss the possibilities. Michael Tellinger, welcome to A Guiding Light. And it appears that we just dropped off Michael. I'm not sure if he's on here. Are you with us, Michael? Of course, normally when we have a big event like this, these types of things happen. Do you hear me, Michael? There's a bit of a delay here, and because Michael's in Australia, I see we have him back, but I'm just going to be quiet for a second just to see if Michael can come in here. Are you with us, Michael?
I'm with you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you know, you're cutting in and out really bad, but I'm just gonna. I know there's a delay here, so I'm gonna try to pause a moment and allow you to speak. But what I'd like to do is maybe we can start off with briefly telling the listeners who may not know you who you are and how you got to where you are currently today.
Well enough for I started and I realized that
Well, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties here tonight. This is the first time I've had guests drop off like this and the inability to hear. So I'm not quite sure exactly what I'm going to do here tonight because I've tried several different ways, and Michael doesn't have a way to call in from where he's at. How's the connection now, Michael? Hopefully we can get this all together here. We may have to reset this whole thing, so I'm sorry to those who are listening right now. I'm not quite sure what the technical difficulty is, and we're going through Skype right now, so that might be it, but I'm not quite sure. So please hang on the line here for me, and I'm going to try to get this worked out, and if you just give me a couple minutes, we're going to try to get Michael back on here and get a clear signal, and so that we can have a better communication here tonight.
Hello?
Michael?
Can you hear me?
I can now. We got you. You're pretty clear.
Works.
You know, this is really, really bad connection, Michael. I can't even hear anything. I'm sorry about this, but I don't real. We're going through Skype. I'm gonna hang up, and then maybe you can contact me, and then I'll try to bring you on. Okay?
Hello?
Okay. Michael, are you with us?
I'm here, Joe. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so sorry about all this. I don't know why. It seems like every time there's a big event like this, these types of things happen. So I'm glad you got to call in here.
Yeah, I've never used this phone before because I'm not at my house. I'm at somewhere else. So I've never used this phone before. I didn't know how to use it. It's one of these fancy phones, but I managed to figure it out.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Basically, like, we didn't hear anything where you started from, so I'm just going to let you go with, for the listeners who don't know you, maybe a brief description of who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. I'm a researcher and an author and a scientist from the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. I was trained in the field of pharmaceutics. University of Witwatersrand is famous in the area of origins of humankind and anthropology for having Professor Raymond Dart and Professor Philip Tobias, who worked very extensively at the Taung skull and made various discoveries at Sterkfontein caves that have in mainstream science been linked to the origins of humankind, which we now know are not necessarily true, but nevertheless that's where I come from in my background. And in 2005 I sat down and I wrote a book called Slave Species of God, in which I pulled together all the various aspects and areas of research that I felt were very important to analyze and pull together cohesively to present a slightly different version of origins of humankind than mainstream media present to us. And I brought together ancient religions and Sumerian tablets and genetics and astronomy and human nature and all these things, and it seems to have really worked because Slave Species of God, I guess you can say, has become a bit of a cult book. It has now been picked up by Bear & Company, Bear & Co. in Vermont. So it's being released worldwide by a big publisher, which is going to be really exciting for me to reach markets that haven't been reached before. But that book led me to meeting a guy called Johann Heine in 2007, who exposed me to the many stone ruins and this many circular stone ruin structures that are scattered around southern Africa. Johann had been photographing those for about 15 to 20 years at that stage, trying to bring it to the attention of the authorities, the universities, the archaeologists, and the historians, and they just ignored him and didn't pay any attention to him. And Johann had accumulated hundreds of spectacular aerial photographs, and I got involved with Johann and very quickly realized that what he had been photographing is a direct link and physical evidence for what the Sumerian tablets refer to as the Anunnaki gold mining empire of the Sumerian entity Enki, who came to planet Earth some 435,000 years ago in search of gold. And he found that gold in great abundance in an area that the Sumerian tablets refer to as the Abzu, and sometimes as the Deep Abzu. Well, the research is carried on now since 2007, and slowly but surely I've pieced together the pieces of the puzzle and the physical and scientific evidence to present two additional books, one called Adam's Calendar and another one called Temples of the African Gods, which show in really exciting visual material and scientific conclusions that we are in fact dealing with the physical evidence of what was previously written about by people like Zecharia Sitchin especially, the physical evidence of the lost, vanished civilizations of southern Africa, the vast gold mining empire that was established here and that mysteriously disappeared without a trace. And it is now very evident that that's what we're dealing with here, and many, many exciting discoveries on a regular basis.
Yeah. Can you tell the listeners how the dating, how you discovered how long ago some of these ruins were? Like, how do they date it?
Yeah, that's a process that took a long time, because most of these ruins in modern day history books are referred to as just stone structures built by migrating tribes from the north, and cattle kraals, meaning enclosures for cattle, that they were built by migrating tribes and for those purposes. And while at the same time they bring out the fascinating anomalies about these stone structures, the anomalies are that they have no entrances, and they have these channels, or sometimes referred to as roads by ignorant historians or scholars. They call them roads that link these stone circles together. Let's call them stone circles because that's what I call them, and they're all circular in their structure, but everyone is unique in their shape. So they're called stone circles or cattle kraal that are connected by these roads, and the historians write in our history books that these roads were built by these people to drive their cattle on, and they just make up nonsensical stories like that because it's the only kind of thing that they can come up with without any real scientific support for those kind of statements. But in fact, it's far more mysterious and far more exciting what has really been going on here. The dating techniques for this are really fascinating because it's starts with astronomical dating at a place that I called Adam's Calendar. And this is a site that was also rediscovered by Johann Heine. And Johann was flying over this area and realized that these stone structures on the edge of a cliff were a little suspicious, and they were not just natural formations. And he came back a few days later and started measuring them and analyzing them, and realized that they were aligned with the solstices and equinoxes and the rise of the sun and so forth, and realized it was an actual calendar site. But that was obviously the first impressions, and it is most certainly an ancient stone calendar. But just like Stonehenge and many other of these ancient megalithic sites, the calendar aspect of it is just a built-in feature into a far more exciting and scientifically or scientific structure that has far more interesting and exciting uses than just telling us about solstices and equinoxes. And that's really what came out in the last 2 years of research after I started doing electronic measurements in there that tell us these are highly energetic devices, in fact so energetic, and they generate so much energy that we can't even measure it with the most sophisticated electronic equipment in the world today. The dating, Joe, just to come back to the dating thing, is that it started with the connection to the rise of the belt of Orion, Orion's belt, at Adam's Calendar, or as I now call it, Enki's Calendar, because there's lots of evidence that points to the fact that it was actually built by the Sumerian entity Enki, who is linked to the creation of the human race. But the rise of Orion's belt is linked to some pyramidal structures that are in a valley that line up with the edge of the cliff. The pyramids are about 700 meters below the edge of the cliff, below the calendar, Adam's calendar, or Enki's calendar. And that was the first thing that started us going, with the fact that the rise of Orion, the way that some of the stones are positioned in that alignment, suggests that should have happened anytime between 75 and 160,000 years ago, from two independent astronomers that did that calculation for us. So we immediately knew, or I immediately knew, that we were dealing with something really old and really ancient, much more ancient than ever imagined by any archaeologist or historian or astronomer. And that started the chain reaction, studying the stones and the geology, and it's from the geology of the stones and some of the tools and artifacts that I've been discovering and putting in my little museum that I've put together, that we get the real indication of the age of these structures from what is referred to as the patina growth on the tools and the artifacts, which suggests that we're dealing with something way beyond 100,000 years, and probably between 100 and 300,000 years old.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. You mentioned the energy. Is it coming from like the ley lines from the Earth? They situate the particular stones in such a manner that it follows the ley lines of the Earth, or energy lines. And is there also specific types of stone that they use to generate this energy?
Yeah, the stone that is used to build the stone circles is they're two types of stone. And the most common stone is a type of stone called Hornfels. It's named after a German geologist. And the Hornfels it's a metamorphosized quartzite. It's black in color. It's extremely hard. It's almost impossible to break it by hand or by bashing them together. But it does break very easily if you expose it to heat, fire. Fire will make these Hornfels stones crack. But the interesting feature that they have is that they ring like bells. They're like crystals because they're metamorphosized quartzite, incredibly dense and high in iron content, very, very high iron content. And that is really exciting, because when I discovered that the stones ring like bells, I realized that we were likely dealing with some aspect of sound frequency as a source of energy. And you're not far off by saying, asking whether it's the ley lines that are creating the energy. Because at Adam's calendar, Enki's calendar, there seem to be at least 5 ley lines that converge in that particular place. And that's just spectacular. But it's not really the ley lines that create the energy. It is other effects and features of the structures. And while Adam's calendar is undoubtedly the flagship and the center point among these many, many ruins, and I might as well just tell you right now, there are more than 10 million of these ruins scattered throughout southern Africa. And I first realized that there were 10 million of these ruins. I realized that we're dealing with a vanished civilization that nobody has recognized before. And you're not going to read about this in any history book unless you look at what I've written and the calculations and the research that I've done. So what I also realized is that the circular structures or the stone circles, one feature that, it's so obvious, it stares you in the face, and you will know this from all major research in science. Sometimes the answers are so obvious and they're so right in front of your eyes that we can't see the wood for the trees, right? And that's exactly what was going on here. And it took me 2 years of working with them and researching them and walking through thousands of these circles and following the channels that connect them and the agricultural terraces that surround them, that are like a giant spider's web, that connect all these stone circles together with the channels that connect them together. That just makes no sense at all to any kind of, from a normal archaeological or historic perspective. It's just a totally confusing situation. Until I realized that the stones that make them up ring like bells, and that each one of these stone circles has a completely unique shape. And that in itself is just bizarre, because that doesn't make any sense at all. Until I realized that each one of those circular structures is actually the representation of the sound frequencies and the cymatic shapes, that sound manifests in a specific shape or form. When you put sand on a metal plate and you put a sound frequency through the metal plate, many of your listeners would have seen those wonderful experiments done by Hans Jenny and other researchers. And that sound frequency coming through the metal plate creates these beautiful circular shapes that take on different shapes and different forms as the frequency changes. So if you imagine the metal plate is the crust of the earth, of Mother Earth, and the stones are just larger pebbles of sand, that's exactly the event that's happening here. Every stone circle is just the physical representation and the shape representing the sound frequency as it comes out of Mother Earth at that particular point. And that is what I measured, and now I can say with absolute certainty that each and every stone circle is actually an energy device, because it taps into the sound frequency of Mother Earth.
I see. And do you see a correlation with sacred geometry with these particular shapes?
Oh, definitely. Many of them have sacred geometric patterns built into them. And that is another interesting thing, and I believe that that's not necessarily accidental, done by the people that built them. And the people that built them, I'm now referring to the Anunnaki, as the Sumerian tablets refer to them, and much of Zechariah Sitchin's translations. The Anunnaki, the gods that pretty much controlled humanity and responsible for the cloning of the species to help them mining the gold, right? But the sacred geometric shapes, I believe, are also just aspects of these frequencies that come out of Mother Earth, of Gaia, and sometimes the circular stone structures take on these sacred geometric shapes purely because it is an aspect of the sound frequency that they represent.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting? I don't know if I talked to you about this before, but there's a location in Pennsylvania. It's called the Ringing Rocks. And
yes.
Exactly what you're saying. And I think we did discuss this, but you didn't have that information that you just had given me today, right now. And I remember going, and there's just a huge pile of this particular rock, and it's almost exactly what you're describing. And you take a hammer and you hit it, and it rings like a bell. And then some of the stones that are around it, you can hit, and they'll crack in half, and they won't make any sound. So it was kind of a trial and error what I was doing when I went there. It's really interesting that you say it. I didn't see any geometric shapes or any shapes. There was just a pile, but maybe from a vantage point of a plane, say, flying over, there may be associated geometric shapes thereabouts or around this area. Maybe, I'm not quite sure why there's a whole pile in one spot at one place, or unless they somehow charged them in some manner and then left them there, and maybe they were going to make shapes out of them afterwards. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's quite possible, Joe. I've seen some footage of the area that you're referring to in Pennsylvania, and it really is fascinating. And it's quite possible that it might have been a storage place, or they might have been piled up there by water, by flood waters and that. Because it's very clear to me now, and the evidence here in South Africa is that this civilization of more than 10 million of these stone ruins and this vast gold mining operation was destroyed by the biblical flood, what's referred to as the Great Flood, between 12 and 13,000 years ago. And there are many indicators and reasons for that I say, and it's once again the evidence is quite obvious for that. Sea sand and seashells and fossilized fish on tops of mountains, inside some of these stone structures and around them, and in the valley where the pyramids are lining up with the rise of Orion, aligning with Adam's calendar, there's probably about 30 meters of sea sand sediment throughout that valley, and that valley is very fertile and rich for certain types of agriculture and so forth. And the building industry now sends trucks in there, and they just load the sea sand and deliver it and distribute it to the building sites all over the place. And it's just quite beautiful examples of that. But so the Great Flood played a big role in destroying this and covering up most of these stone structures, because the circular stone ruins that we've been researching and examining are only a small, tiny fraction of the rest of them that lie covered by soil and below the soil. And you can see them at specific times of the day when you're flying over the areas. Some of the areas are concentrated, and then you have areas in between where there isn't much, and then there's another big area that's concentrated with thousands of the ruins, and so these sort of clusters of these stone circular structures, these clusters lie scattered throughout southern Africa, and it is those clusters, together with their ability to generate energy, that are all connected by these stone walls, these channels that connected the energy and shared the energy into other circles and all the agricultural terraces, that tell us that these guys had advanced technology, knowledge of advanced technology using sound frequency as a source of energy, understanding quantum communication, quantum locking, probably using the channels as sort of electromagnetic railway tracks to move materials between the stone circles. And I must also tell you that the stone circles were not dwelling places. This has got nothing to do with people's homes and residences. These are all workplaces where they were participating and active in working, generating, the processing of the gold, getting the ore out of the ground, being able to move it around with these levitation devices running along these strange electromagnetic tracks, if you want to call them that. They would then use sound frequencies to crush the ore into a fine powder to separate the minerals, the gold, and so forth. And why do I know it's all about gold? It's because there's a lot of there have been thousands of gold mines found, ancient gold mines found in the vicinity of all these stone circles. In the one area of Leidenburg alone, Leidenburg and Barberton were the two sort of frontier gold mining pioneer towns, and Leidenburg, Barberton, and Kaap de Hoop, and those three towns were the pioneering gold mining towns like California and Australia had the gold rush at the same time. But these guys didn't build all the, or didn't dig all the gold mines. These gold mines were already there when they stumbled upon them. And just in the Leidenburg area, they counted more than 75,000 ancient gold mines. That's just one little area. So if you extrapolate that over the entire area that these stone circles cover, and the stone circles cover pretty much, I'd say, half of South Africa, very large parts of Botswana, and across the border north of us into Zimbabwe, and most of Zimbabwe is covered by these stone circular structures. And in Zimbabwe alone, you've also got the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, which are one of the most mysterious ruins in the world. Now, these ruins have a very specific alignment, because Adam's calendar is directly aligned with the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, and further north they're aligned at the top of Africa, at the opposite side of Africa. In Egypt, they're aligned with the Great Pyramid of Giza. So you've got Adam's calendar, Enki's, or Enki's calendar, let's call it that, Enki's house or Enki's domain, north of it in Zimbabwe. And then much further north in Africa and Egypt, you got it aligned with the Great Pyramid of Giza, all on the 31 degrees east longitudinal line. Now, in ancient times, that was known as the Nilotic Meridian, and that's what it's called down here in South Africa, the Nilotic Meridian, which has got some very special energetic features linked to it, and is a very sacred meridian with ancient knowledge keepers and African knowledge keepers for thousands of years. It's also linked to the mystery of the white lions of Timbavati in South Africa, and many, many other fascinating things that happen along this Nilotic Meridian,
right,
which is very important information.
Absolutely. So, getting back to the work area, so to speak, were the people that were working at that particular time, did they work for gold? Did they work for the Anunnaki or were they slaves at that particular time?
Oh, that's absolutely. The ancient knowledge keepers in Africa, fortunately for us, have maintained the knowledge and kept the information secretly. The shaman and the sangomas, the medicine men, and the traditional healers of Africa have kept and retained this knowledge and information in an oral tradition, while the colonialists tried their best to beat it out of them, just like they did all over the world whenever they arrived, to perpetrate their disgusting genocidal behavior on the native populations of the world, like they did in the Americas and in Asia and India and wherever else. In Africa there was no different. And they didn't succeed. The knowledge keepers of Africa still keep the information, and it's the same as in all ancient cultures. The one thing they tell you, that they all come from the stars. Their origins and their ancestors come from the sky. They come from the stars. And when you ask any ancient indigenous population, when the colonialists arrived there and found them sitting on huge amounts of gold in ancient gold mines, when they were asked, who does all this gold belong to, all the ancient people would tell you the same thing. They would point to the sky and say the gold belongs to the gods. And that was just ignored by the Westerners, the Europeans. And they tried their best to, suppress that knowledge and information, replace it with a modern westernized history books, and started forcing the local people to learn history based on European belief systems. But it's all about gold, and it is all about slaves being cloned and created by the star people, and for one reason only, and that was to become slaves in the gold mines. And that's a story that gets echoed over and over, especially in African mythology. The gods came down from the sky. They created the humans to do what? To work in the gold mines.
Right. So they were geneticists, and so to speak, and they were so advanced that they could manipulate the DNA of the indigenous people and make them a better slave race. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, well, they found some sort of a creature that was already reasonably evolved on planet Earth, and it seems to be either Homo erectus or Homo habilis or one of the other sort of upright walking ape-like creatures that already had a relatively high level of evolution and some consciousness, some very low level consciousness, and they used that creature to genetically manipulate and cross that with their own DNA, and that genetic information is now very clearly available. The brilliant William Brown, who's a molecular biologist and a geneticist from Hawaii, he was at my UFO Science and Consciousness conference in Johannesburg in November, amongst many other brilliant speakers like Laura Eisenhower and Lloyd Pye and David Hudson, the white powder of gold guy from Phoenix, and William Brown was here and as well, and a few other South African speakers and researchers. And William Brown presented a spectacular bit of scientific and genetic and molecular biological evidence of how our DNA is just a complete mishmash, a splicing of genetic material that makes no sense, how the chromosomes were messed with, and how what was originally a 12-stranded DNA has been compiled into a very basic 2 strands of DNA, this entwined essence, as the Sumerians call it. And I find it fascinating. You're a medical man, so, what do we call DNA today? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Well, what the hell does that mean to the average person on the street, It's some nonsensical scientific name given to the essence of what makes our bodies, and we don't understand at all how it works. Well, that is changing very rapidly, and people like William Brown and other geneticists that are working in that field are presenting spectacular information that is absolutely unquestionable, how our DNA has been manipulated and recloned to do exactly that, to create a primitive species, or as the Sumerian tablets call it, the Lulu Amelu, a primitive worker that was put to work in the gold mines.
Awesome. Okay, so that leads us, we only have like 20 minutes left here, and I know there's so much more we could go into here, but the people that have gotten a tidbit of what you've said so far, let's first of all give them your website and the 2 books again, if you will, right now. Yep,
my main website, it's a new website where we basically consolidated all my work, and it's now just very simple, michaeltellinger.com. So if you go to michaeltellinger.com, there's quite a bit of information. And there's also the schedule for my upcoming United States and Canadian tour. I'll be in the USA starting in New York City on the 6th of June. And then I'll be the keynote speaker on the 9th of June in Vermont in Lyndonville, Vermont, at the American Dowsers Society at their annual convention. I'll be the keynote speaker there. So if you're into dowsing, the fascinating phenomenon of dowsing, and the more I learn about dowsing, the more excited I get, please come and see me in Vermont. I'll also be doing a full-day workshop in Vermont on the 11th of June, after doing the keynote address. And so that's going to be exciting, a full-day workshop there. And then we're going to make our way across the United States, from going across to Cleveland, Toledo, Chicago, then down to Salt Lake City, and then all the way across to Rainier in Washington State. And then we're going to go to Hawaii and come back to Los Angeles, where I'm doing a full-day workshop in Los Angeles as well. I think it's on the last weekend in June. Afterwards, we go to Canada, and I'm doing 3 presentations there, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. And we come back to the United States, and I end up with a presentation in Portland, Maine. I think it's on the 15th of July. So if you're anywhere in those areas, go to the website, check out the dates, and come and see the presentation, where you'll see a spectacular photographic and video evidence of what I'm talking about, and it really is very exciting. Because, I mean, we you and I have met now, Joe, so you know what I'm talking about. But until you see it visually and you see some photographic and video evidence of the stuff, and it's difficult to imagine, and it's quite spectacular.
Okay. I hate to hurry things along, but I really want to get into the next part of this. But before I do, the 2 books that you've written, and where can the listeners get them?
Right. Well, there's 3 books. It's Slave Species of God, the first book, Adam's Calendar, which just exposes the discovery of the calendar sites, which I now call Enki's Calendar. And then the third book, which goes into more detail about the ruins, is called Temples of the African Gods. And they're available in the United States in the bookstores. Just go into your bookstore and ask for them, and if they don't have it, they should be able to order it within a few days. The distributor in the United States is called APG. They're down in Nashville. But Slave Species of God is being re-released by Bear & Co. in the USA. It's due for re-release now under a slightly new name. It's going to be called it's going to be called Slave Species of the Gods, and it's got a lovely new cover that Bear & Co. gave it, and it should be available very freely in most bookstores, because they're a nice big publishing company that has better reach than I have. Otherwise, you can also go onto my website, michaeltellinger.com, and it's available there.
Okay, thank you so much for all that, Michael. Now, I'm very happy that we got a history lesson here, the true history. You have proof to back it up, and that moves us into the kind of a change in direction, or simultaneously moving in another mission at this point. And I don't know if you want to get into the fraudulent banking cartel, and because we talked about the humanity becoming a slave species, and now that we have that history, how did you get into this other avenue of, or another mission that you're into? Maybe you could, kind of lead into that now.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because having been researching origins of humankind, one thing leads to another, and you think you're going to be dealing with archaeology and geology, and before you know, you're dealing with advanced technology. And we didn't touch upon the advanced technology side. I cover that in great detail in my presentations and workshops, and it's truly mind-blowing stuff. And the physical evidence is there, so that's what I'll show you if you come to my presentations. But what you also find out is that for at least 270,000 years, these people existed here in southern Africa, and they clearly weren't hungry based on the amount of agricultural terraces and the technology that they had. They were very well looked after and very well fed. But the one thing that becomes very clear is that they had no money. They didn't use money as a source of medium. Money didn't exist at all. So for a much longer period in human history, we existed as a species without money or the need for money, because many people believe or are under the misguided conception or perception that money is a natural sort of process of evolution, that money slowly evolved out of bartering and trade and so forth, and eventually we ended up with money. Well, that is absolutely not true. There's a very specific historic event when money was introduced to humanity by the gods, by the Anunnaki. And the Sumerian tablets are very clear about this. And this all happened after the flood. So after this vast civilization, gold mining empire here was destroyed by the flood, when the floodwater subsided, and we get a lot of this information very clearly spelled out in the Sumerian tablets, when the floodwater subsided and they re-energized or reactivated many of the gold mining activities here, but only to a much smaller extent because much of the population was wiped out. They did two other things. They appointed kings and priests among humanity and gave them all the knowledge and power and the control over humans, and gave them another thing called money, or the concept of money. And the first money actually appeared in Sumeria, among the Sumerians again. Not only did they write all this knowledge and information on clay tablets, millions of clay tablets that more and more information is coming out of, but they also used the clay tablets as a first form of currency. And the clay tablets had certain inscriptions on them, allowing the bearer of that tablet to acquire certain things. So it was the first form of money, long before coins were minted or pressed by the kings at a later stage. And that's really important to wrap your head around, because money is not a natural evolutionary process. Money was maliciously and specifically introduced to humans at a very specific point in time. For what reason? For the reason of control, because it went from people living as absolute slaves in the gold mines, although they were given everything, so they didn't realize they were slaves as long as they were mining gold and living in their communities, making food and creating the support structure for the gold mining operation. They didn't need money until the flood wiped everything out, and suddenly money became the new tool of enslavement, because the Anunnaki couldn't keep control over the humans as well as they did before the flood. So they taught the people how to live in communities, and they called it civilization, and that's when civilization first appeared, especially in the northern hemisphere, in the ancient cities there of Iraq and other cities around Europe, and also in the Americas and in Asia and so forth. And that's a fascinating moment in history. When so-called civilizations appear and they start to use money. And that control of money has now developed and evolved to the point where the royal political elite, the bloodlines of the kings that has been passed down through the bloodlines for thousands of years, still the same bloodlines of kings that rule the world. And if people believe otherwise, they're completely misguided. This control carries on today. Nothing has changed. And it is from these bloodlines and special offshoots of these families, bloodline families, that we have developed a small group of banking families that control the supply, the printing and the supply of money for the world. And the three major families in there are the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the Morgans. And there are a few others. But if you watch the beautiful documentary called Thrive, done by Foster Gamble a few months ago, it spells out a lot of this information in great detail. So it's very simple. Money is a commodity that was created, artificially controlled, and is used as an absolute tool of enslavement on the human race today. So how do we overcome this? What do we do to rid ourselves of this absolute slavery? And the answer to that is really simple. You get rid of money. Because if money is a tool of enslavement, then get rid of money. And the moment you say that, some people just, jump up in horror and say, well, how is it going to work? Well, why will people do anything? Why will people be motivated to do anything? And how are we going to pay for stuff? And people, we are so traumatized by the concept of no money is because it has become such a tool of enslavement. And if you just spend a little bit of time and go through what happens with money, the fact that money is the hurdle to progress, it is the absolute barrier to progress and advancement, and therefore when you remove money, what you do is you open the path to absolute abundance on all levels. Now, I know we don't have enough time to go through this, but really, in essence, that's what it is. If money is the hurdle to all progress, remove money, and suddenly you see this unbridled abundance in the in the area of production of food, agriculture, science, technology, free energy devices that are developed by scientists, and the entire paradigm of global structure and society changes dramatically overnight. At the same time, what happens is that the evils of the world today, which are all directly linked to money, disappear and vanish overnight. And I'm talking about crime, greed, gluttony, envy, all those horrible things that we find ourselves involved in. And specifically the crime, the greed, and the gluttony, and the hoarding that happens in the world today because of money just vanishes into thin air because there is no money. And I call the system contributionism, where societies and communities live together in absolute harmony, moving closer towards unity consciousness on a daily basis, because now they're spending all their time and energy pursuing their love, their passion, their God-given talents to add value to their community as a whole. And it's the North American native populations, the Hopis and the Cherokees and many other of the native populations that have some very important sayings, and they say, if it's no good for everybody, it's no good at all. And those are really some of the fundamentals of what I call contributionism.
Right.
A society without money, where everybody contributes to the greatest benefit of all in their community. No greed, no money, no barter, no trade, no value, higher or lesser, attached to anything, because everything is available to everyone, because that's what people do, because they love doing what they do. It's really that simple.
Wonderful. All right, we have about 7 minutes left, and you're just a plethora of knowledge, and I definitely recommend everybody going and seeing you, because I personally have seen your presentations in the past, and I'm sure that this will be magnified with all this new current knowledge that you've developed since the last time I've gone to one of your presentations. But briefly, I know this is going to be difficult, but we're in a legal system here. And what do you say to those people that say, how do we make a change within the current system? And who's doing that? Like, maybe you could touch on what you are personally doing on the front lines of this and the court system that you're up against, or the Supreme Court, or, well, I'll just let you talk about it.
Yeah, well, it was really, as you know, this understanding of money, where it comes from, who controls it, and so forth, that made me realize, and I went and had to research about the control of money, how the entire law system that we have in the world is based around controlling humanity. It's not for the benefit of humanity, it's for the controlling of humanity by the royal political elite. And that's a big shock to the system. You know, we get sold words like democracy and freedom. Well, those are all just poison-coated or sugar-coated poison pills that we get told and made to swallow time and time again. Democracy is not a solution for the problems. Democracy is just another decoy. What's important is to remove money from the system, but unfortunately the legal system as we have it is completely and utterly stacked against humanity and against breaking down these financial barriers. Then the courts protect the bankers and the activities of the banking fraternities to the detriment of people. But I've been, I started asking the bank certain questions when I realized that that they weren't as kosher as people believe they are. And everything the banks do is to undermine and to enslave and entrap humanity for as long as they can so that they can control them. Everything they do is fraudulent. Last night, I sat here with one of the shareholders of the South African Reserve Bank, and it's just the same as the Federal Reserve System in the United States. It's a privately owned company. They can print money as and when they want, create money out of thin air. In essence, what happens is between the reserve banks and the central banks and all the other banks that run the world, they print money out of thin air. They create money out of thin air. They print these pieces of paper that have absolutely no value. They've got a number stamped on it and some fancy logos, and they use that as this thing called money on the street with the average people on the street. But behind the scenes, banks don't work with money. They work with what they call negotiable bills, negotiable instruments, and bills of exchange. And just what I suggest to your listeners is go and look up negotiable instruments and bills of exchange, and you realize that that's the real thing that happens. And they use our signatures. The moment you apply for a mortgage loan, a home loan, the banks don't have money. They act as intermediaries, as agents. They take your promise to your offer to purchase, your promissory note with your signature, and then they go and securitize that with International Securitization Agency in a process called securitization, where they generate huge amounts of money on our signatures. Then they take that money and they keep it for themselves, making you believe that they loaned you money where actually they went and they gained money based on your signature, never disclosing that to you. So they've already broken certain acts. They break the most important thing, which is contract law. Contract law states that you cannot lend something that you don't possess. So how can they lend you money if they don't have the money and they only get it after you sign for it? And so these are the things that I've followed. And right now, after 3 appearances in the Supreme Court in Johannesburg, where the final judgment went against me, we now petitioned the Constitutional Court. And as far as I know, this is the first time ever in history that a layperson has been granted an opportunity to petition the full bench of the Constitutional Court, which rewrites the laws. Remember, the Constitutional Court writes the laws. So I'm now, I've filed papers and served the Standard Bank of South Africa, which is the biggest bank in Africa, and I believe it's a Rockefeller company with the word standard in it, Standard Bank, as in Standard Oil. And I also served papers on the Minister of Finance, and I served papers on the South African Reserve Bank, which incidentally I think it's the most powerful bank in the world because of the minerals that they control. And all 3 of them are going to be hauled over the coals in front of the full bench of the Constitutional Court of 11 judges, 22 clerks, and an additional bench of researchers of, I think, 8 advocates that do all the research. It's going to be a really interesting period in human history.
Yeah, so for the listeners out there that are like, is there anything going on? Because, the internet, YouTube, and everything is just buzzing right now with, there are things happening behind the scenes, and it's not well televised because everybody or actually the controlling people that you just talked about tonight are controlling the media also. And therefore, it's important to get out through broadcasts such as this that there are things that are happening. And just because we can't see it don't mean it's not happening. And you are a perfect example of what's going on behind the scenes because, as you and I spoke a few weeks ago, I could see things leading up to this court case that you had, and you had to speak before how many judges?
Yeah, well, 3 times. I've been in the Supreme Court on 3 occasions arguing my case for more than 2 hours, and that's never happened before either because each time the case lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, and then the judges throw it out. They just don't understand this, and so basically they deny my constitutional rights to go and have a fair trial where we can bring evidence and experts to be cross-examined to get across the arguments that we bring. So we're using the fact that my constitutional rights have been violated by the legal system and take it to the highest court in the land, who we believe will have to act and implement changes to the common law principles and change the laws that govern banking. And for the people listening, please go to thebigcase.co.za and sign the online petition. We need a few 100,000 signatures to really send a message to the South African Constitutional Court when we eventually get there in a few months' time.
Awesome. We're running out of time here. I have another guest who's graciously given up a few minutes of his time, Tolec, and I think that I have extra time here, which I just found out today. So I just want to give you a couple extra minutes here, Michael. Have you heard of the gentleman named Drake that's going viral across the internet?
I have. Is it to do with the arrest of the bankers and so forth?
Yes. So
yeah.
I mean, the only reason I bring that up is because a lot of the things that we're discussing and what we will be discussing maybe later on in my shows coming up and down the pike, they all dovetail into one another. And everything you're speaking of tonight is an awesome lead-in for Tolec and his discussion from a different avenue or different perspective, and it's going to help put this whole thing all together. It's just like different pieces to the puzzle, and I'm sure you have, actually I know you have much more information than what we can cover in an hour, because you and I have talked for hours and hours and hours. So I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight, and we'd love to have you back in the future for updates if you're willing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can do that. You know, once I get to the United States, hopefully the Skype links will be a lot better, plus it's easier to phone. So we can keep each other updated as we travel to the United States, because there is so much more. And I think it's important that I share the knowledge that I have with your listeners, because it suddenly dawned on me the other day that by some weird, sequence of events, suddenly I find myself at the forefront of this financial battle against the banks, reaching the highest court that has ever happened before, the Constitutional Court. And we're really facing a possible reality here that the Constitution is going to be faced. The full bench is going to be faced with only one decision, and that is to change the laws that by which banks operate, which will have a global effect. It's not just in South Africa. Remember, these banks are all owned by the same people. And once the Constitution gets changed here, it'll have a dramatic effect on banking globally. So it's a fascinating period in history, and I believe it's the entree. It's the first block or domino that's going to fall over, that's hopefully going to start the full domino effect for the banking industry to collapse and lead us into the transitional phase of a moneyless society, higher levels of consciousness, and moving towards the contributionism state of abundance that I'm so passionate about, and free people from this tyranny of financial enslavement.
Wonderful. Okay, Michael, I really appreciate this again. I can't wait to hook up with you again, and when you come to the States again, as you know, I'm in New Mexico now rather than Pennsylvania, and regardless, hopefully we can hook up again and visit and chat, and you do get to be local here with me. We can do a radio show right here.
That'll be awesome, Joe, and I really look forward to seeing you again. Lovely hearing your voice, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be going as far down as New Mexico this time around, which is a pity. I didn't realize you were down there. But let's see. Hopefully we can connect in the United States and do something really exciting.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with before I bring Tolec on? Really,
just to say, come and see me. Check out my website, michaeltillinger.com. If you're anywhere near some of the cities that I'll be in, come and see the presentation. It's really exciting stuff. It pulls a lot of pieces together, a lot of missing pieces of the puzzle that'll make a lot more sense to you. Linking all of this together and that ultimately leads to the abuse and the control of humanity through money today. And this is why we need to break it down and go on to also thebigcase.co.za and sign that online petition and spread that to everybody you know, so we can get hundreds of thousands of signatures that will really drive a strong message to the Constitutional Court.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks again for being on the show, and again, we're going to have you back for updates. And, what time is it? It's 4 o'clock in the morning there right now?
Yeah, it's just gone, just after 4 in the morning, so I'm going to go back to bed and catch up.
Well, thank you again so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Joe, and love and light to all your listeners, and see you in the United States.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Okay, my next guest is Tolec from the Andromedan Council. Tolec and I will be discussing the Andromedan Council and their latest developments. We will also dive into life as a 4D human, what healthcare will look like, the modalities we will be using, and energy work. So tune in as we discuss the possibilities. Now, we got a few callers in here, so I got to see which one is Tolec. I'm going to try to bring this person on here. Tolec, is it you?
I'm right here, if you can hear me.
Wonderful. Yes, it's very clear. How are you?
Great. I'm doing good. Is the volume okay? Any background noise, anything?
No, everything sounds perfect. We were having a little bit of technical difficulty via Skype with Michael Tellinger from South Africa, but because you're in the United States, it seems like we're okay.
Yeah. By the way, just as a reference point, I can hear what sounds like a radio or a telecast in the background. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
I am not aware of that, and there's nothing else in where I'm at right now, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I can actually hear your prior show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with Michael. How's that? Is it quieter? There we go. Okay. Yeah, it was probably me because I was listening to tail end so I could know when to call in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? There's a time delay there. Okay.
All right. Well, here we go. By the way, if you're interested, yes, I did spend the first 20-plus years of my career in the software industry, as you know, specifically in the healthcare software industry. And I haven't talked publicly a lot about this at all, actually, but more recently I've been in executive management and in finance. And as I was listening to Michael's in-depth discussion about the reality of banking these days, I can categorically comment about the reality of what he's talking about. Because in my role as chief operating officer of our last firm, I was the guy that had to deal with the financial institutions. Banks like UBS, Credit Suisse, Standard Chartered, ABN AMRO, HSBC, Deutsche, and the list goes on and on and on. And I will tell you again, categorically, at the risk of repeating myself, these banks did everything they could to make anything our firm was attempting to do from a global business-to-business transaction a nightmare and a difficulty. Kind of like you're a new player in a game room, you open the door, and there are a bunch of guys around a card table with a pile of chips, and you're trying to get into their game. They don't want you in their game.
Right.
They want to keep playing the same game they've been playing for years, and they're going to do everything in their power to put up barriers to keep you out. Even if you have clients who have money in their banks. And that was the really frustrating thing.
Right.
Really, really, really frustrating thing. So, the first part of my comment about global banking is that everything that Michael has said is true, and there's far more detail that I'm going to even get into because it's boring banking business. But suffice it to say that what I have learned about this topic regarding the future of our world, post the changes, post the continuing Earth changes that are going on, and after our planet becomes if you will, a fully functional fourth dimensional world, there will be, at least as we measure time today, there will be approximately a 10 to 12 year period of transition from a money, economic-based society to a society around the globe, and as part of a greater galactic or greater cosmology of human trading planets. There will be a society that is just what he described. Cooperation, collaboration, for the benefit of the person, for the benefit of the family, for the benefit of society as a whole. It's going to be a completely different world, but there is going to be a transition period away from this money-centric society to a society based on collaboration, cooperation, trade, barter, and it will be about supporting each other, helping each other grow, helping, if you will, what have been underdeveloped countries to develop their own resources, develop their own people, develop their own cultures. It's all going to be about boosting each other, collaboration, and cooperation. But again, everything they've told me is it's going to take like 10 to 12 years to get there, just because we've been so entrenched for so many years in this money-based culture and how everything revolves around it. That's the short version.
Awesome. So with everything, were you listening at all? I don't know if you heard Michael's testimony from the very beginning of the show or not.
No, I caught, because I was getting ready to dial in, I caught like the last 15 minutes.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
But he did talk about the Anunnaki and the slave species that just to give you the elevator version, he talked about what he found in the archaeology there in South Africa, and he found, importantly, to this discussion, what we're about to get into, is that there was a higher being, well, at least perceived at that point in human history, that was perceived as the god, and there was a humanoid race here on the planet that had their, for lack of a better way of saying this on the radio, their DNA manipulated and changed, make them a slave species to mine gold. And from that point up until this current time, Michael kind of gave a synopsis with the limited time he had of how we went from that to a money system to where we currently are today. And I'm sure you heard some of that. So how from what you did here, do you feel that what you did hear of Michael's testimony, that you agree?
Yeah, globally, from a broad perspective, I would say yes, I agree. I've heard concepts like this before. I'm certainly not an expert at them, but I have heard these concepts before. I am aware of, as you were well aware, what the reptilians have done on this planet.
Right.
But the thing that I can comment on is that the use of money as a control mechanism for all of the populace is dead nuts right on. And it's a system that's been abused from the beginning by a select few, if you will, banking families and banking powers that be, and powers that be up at the select top of the power ladder around the globe that have been controlling the bulk of monetary resources and the production and allocation of what people consider to be money. So what we have today, for even the least educated listener, we don't have money. And here's my banking 101 version for people. When you look at a U.S. dollar bill, it is a note, right? It's a note for legal tender. If you spend enough time on research to find out what a note is a piece of debt paper. Debt paper. So every time the United States or any other country produces a dollar bill note, they and the people that represent them, the Federal Reserve, are producing debt. Think about that. And typically, the way the banks work, at the highest levels, they're not moving money around. What they're doing is they're crediting certain accounts and debiting others. These days, it's all electronic. So there are all sorts of trading houses, trading firms that are doing all sorts of global international banking business by crediting and debiting based on a system that's based on debt. Crash, and more crash. That's
right.
Banking 101. I'm sorry to tell you, but it doesn't work. It's never worked, and I'm grateful that it's coming down. I really am.
Okay.
I really am. That's my little dissertation on banking.
No, you know what's so cool is that you have that experience in, with this dovetailing that just occurred, which is really awesome to me. And
I have spent hundreds, probably thousands of hours of frustration in dealing with these global banks in my recent job as chief operating officer of our firm, and it has provided me with untold hours of grief and aggravation and more hairs in my dark-haired head than I care to think about. And I'm actually really not happy to be doing it anymore. Sorry, I'm really happy to be not doing it anymore.
Right.
The horror stories are beyond belief. Just incredible. So let's talk about healthcare. That's more fun.
All right. Before we do, I want you to do me a favor here. I'm going to give you the mic here. I'm going to put myself on mute. I have to run to grab a drink because of this lineup that we have, Michael, then you, then Teri's coming on. If you will do me a favor and talk to the listeners for like a minute. I'm still going to be here listening, but I got to run to grab a drink. But could you tell the listeners who do not know who you are briefly, and how you got to where you are today, just briefly?
Yeah, okay. All right. I have a bio that I've sent to you, and I'll try to get through it without reading it chapter and verse. But essentially, I'm a human representative of the Andromeda Council, which is an intergalactic governance and development body of aligned, benevolent star systems and planets. Now, this, if you will, high-level governance body, it does it for worlds in both the Milky Way as well as the Andromeda galaxies. And the chair members of the Andromeda Council comprise a total of 12 distinct representative member races from 12 different worlds. And for those of you that haven't been there before, you can go to the Andromeda Council website, which is andromedacouncil.com, and look at page 2, which is about the Andromeda Council, and read all about the council, its makeup, and specifically the star systems and planets that make up this council. Now, the council is made primarily of third-dimensional people, some third-dimensional people like Earth humans, but mostly higher fine matter essence, fourth-dimensional people, and fifth-dimensional people, as well as some sixth-dimensional people. And for lack of a better description, you can think of the Andromeda Council as an intergalactic and interstellar United Nations. Again, it's high level. It's about protocols. It's about governance in terms of how planets handle communication, how they handle cooperation, how they handle interspecies trade, how they handle interspecies education. They work on all of the protocols and the governance for handling all of those things. So I'm going to move forward. I got the name Tolec, which is simply a public persona work name that the 5 people I communicate with, who are stationed on the primary Andromeda Council biosphere where their meetings are held, they gave me this name so I could keep my private life private and do this Tolec work for the Andromeda Council. Going back in time, I was first physically contacted in 1993 by the principal Andromedan, if you will, commander. He's from the planet Dakota, actually, which is in the Pleiades. And he's an Andromedan commander because he's the commander that's responsible for this one specific primary Andromeda Council biosphere, which I've been on a few times, at least in terms of my fourth dimensional spirit essence body. I've been up there for quite a few trips and meetings. Back to 1993, he and I met off the highway. It was about like 4:20 or 4:30 a.m. in the morning, and over the course of about 2 weeks, he took me on 3 closely clustered together but separate time travel trips via his scout craft. So scout craft definition. Think of what people call a UFO, 35 or 40 feet in diameter round. And so I joined him on this craft. 3 times we went back in time to like the 1840s, if you will, to an area of either rural Kentucky or West Virginia in the U.S. to observe a family of 4 in their day-to-day struggles. And the really valuable reason why I took this trip was not so much for me, but more for this gentleman, because as a fourth dimensional being, they don't experience death. You know, on the rare occasion that somebody says, I don't want to do this, I don't want to experience life, I want to be extinguished. And, you know, that occasion is like, I don't know, 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million. Other than that, the people who live fourth dimensional lives, they'll live like to 8,000 or 10,000 years, and they'll say to themselves, okay, I've given everything that I can to my family, my community, my society. I've learned everything that I can learn in this career that I've had, whatever it is, as a fourth dimensional person. I'm ready to become a fifth dimensional person. And they simply choose a moment and then evolve to becoming a fifth dimensional person. Now, that having been said, they don't experience the deep loss and grief that we do when we, as three-dimensional people, lose somebody important in our lives. For us, death is it's a deep, touching, and tragic event for us. Why was this experience important for me? Well, he wanted to see, it's not so much that it was important for me, but he wanted to see, and he wanted to experience vicariously through me what I would feel, what emotions I would experience, how I would respond to what I saw. And to make a long story short, during the third trip back in time, this family of 4, a mom, a dad, in their like mid-30s or so, and a son and a daughter. I want to say the son was like 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old, and the daughter was like 3.5 or so, kind of like honey blonde hair. And like a lot of daughters, this girl was sort of the sparkle, the light in her dad's eyes. And in this last trip back, there was a barn fire, and this little girl had fallen asleep in the barn on the hay and had died from asphyxiation from the smoke inhalation, and of course was burned. It was difficult for me to watch. It was very difficult for me to watch. And that experience of watching was something that this Andromedan commander wanted to experience through me, because, again, they don't experience death as a day-to-day part of their lives. And so he wanted to get a better handle emotionally on what we as Earth humans go through when things like this happen. So it was a pretty intense experience for me, and it was touching to watch him observe me as I was going through this experience of watching this family, and especially the dad in his grief and losing his daughter, his little girl. So that's that story back in time to 1993 and my 3 separate trips with him back in time. And overall, the folks on the Andromeda Council have told me that they've been in touch with me by various methods since age 5. I only became aware of contact with them in 1993. And then again, he contacted me in September of 2010. And the result of which is the website that people will see actually the growing website that people will see since that period of time. And the way that they communicate with me is through a number of modalities. Most of it is telepathic, which is kind of like my mind, communication using my mind to their minds, whether it's Ambassador Tonka or the commander or Vice Chairwoman Tanya or Azar, the Chief Medical Officer. We can speak mind to mind. I communicate with them in the dream state. They show me things, either wide awake and I'm fully conscious, images, and they also show me things in the dream state of what they're trying to teach me or tell me. From a subtle perspective, sometimes when they're sharing information with me and I'm writing, I receive information that's certainly from a higher level, but it's subtle because it comes through in what people might call like automatic writing. And I can only give you one example recently where I was finished about 3 or 4 paragraphs of an answer to somebody who had written into me, and I said, "And so it shall be." Well, I don't talk like this, but that's how it came through when I was writing. So that's an example of automatic writing. And the last way that they communicate with me, or rather me with them, is that at least some part of my soul, or if you will, my 4th dimensional soul essence body, when my physical 3D body is sleeping, I'll travel up there to the Andromeda Council biosphere and I'll attend meetings. I'll attend a number of more subcommittee and advisory board meetings than council meetings, but I'll attend Andromeda Council meetings as well. And there's that biosphere and 11 others. There's a total of 12 other biospheres kind of in and around Earth space. Of course, it's cloaked, and this one is, I want to say, they can hold at full capacity about 2 million people. And right now it's about 50,000 crew members and their families. The commander of the biosphere and an executive staff of 15 that he's got. A science officer, a number 1, chief medical officer, and the list goes on and on. So that's in terms of the backdrop of what I've learned since I've started, and how everything began for me. That's the totality of the story. And Joe, I'd be happy to answer questions about this if you have any of them. But I'm ready to get going and talk to you about the issues of healthcare and life in 4D and how healthcare happens to us and what it's all about.
Awesome. Before we get moving, and my friend, I think I've told you about, my really good friend, Teri Ippoliti, who is a deep channel, will be coming on probably, let's see, it would be like 9 o'clock my time here, Mountain Standard Time. And she's going to be channeling the Andromedan Council. If you want to stay on the line, we welcome you. That'd be awesome. But I also want to respect your time, too, that if you have to go, that's fine, too.
All right. I don't know how to channel, and I've never worked with anybody that channels.
Right. The only reason why I thought it would be interesting is that you may be able to converse back and forth and confirm your awareness with her, or you guys could have a dialogue back and forth. But if you're not comfortable with it, I'm not putting you on the spot. I just wanted to offer it to you because it's a unique situation that we're in tonight.
Yeah, quite honestly, I'll pass.
Okay.
And I'll pass because I had some conversations this afternoon at length for about an hour and a half with Tanya, the vice chairwoman. And I spoke with the commander of the Andromedan Council last night, as well as Tonka. And I talk to them at least 3 or 4 times a week. So I'm honestly completely up to date with them in terms of anything I need to discuss with them.
Okay,
so
great.
I'd rather not.
Okay, that's fine.
And no disrespect to your friend, but I'm actually quite comfortable doing this myself, using my own modalities and not through somebody else.
Oh, no, that wasn't my point in this either. It was just simply to add another perspective to this. But I'll have her come on, right after you and I are done. But you had mentioned you're aware of, like, what's going on current and up to date. Is there anything that we could say to the listeners that you got today before we get into healthcare, or is there anything you'd like to share, or do you want to pass on it at this time and just go right into the healthcare thing?
Well, let's see. I answered a question just recently from a gentleman who runs a very broad website in terms of who he publishes. A gentleman by the name of Kyle. This is Hawaiian, so bear with me. Kauila, and I believe the website is Kauila Pele. And he asked me specifically about what kind of contact methods and, or if you will, control methods that the reptilians have been using over the course of many years to, if you will, control or manipulate the people of the different dark agenda secret society folks, what's euphemistically called as the Cabal, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the powers that be, that whole bunch. And I learned some things that I didn't know, actually. And one of the things that I learned is, of course, the reptilians are known to be very, very intelligent, and of course they also have many, many natural fourth-dimensional capabilities. Levitation, telekinesis, etc., and that also includes telepathy. But they have used telepathy to communicate, manipulate, control the different secret society groups of the Cabal and the Illuminati and powers that be, etc. But what I did learn that I didn't know is that many of the people in these groups, all of these human people, many of them are implanted with electronic chips. And the electronic chips are not only used as a medium of stimulation for communication, for telepathic communication with the human brain, but they're also used as a torture mechanism. And if the humans in these groups get out of line, if they decide that they want to become, people have been using the word whistleblower these days. If any of these people that are connected to the military side and want to become whistleblowers, these reptilians are going to do everything in their power to take out, disrupt, eliminate, or put aside for being eaten as a natural resource later any of the family members of these secret society, Cabal, Illuminati, power that be people. If they step out of line and they don't toe the reptilian line of thinking and what their agreements have been over the years, they'll torture them and then they'll eliminate them. I was like, wow.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, I just learned this last night over the course of about an hour and a half with the commander. Really intense stuff.
Yeah, because, a lot of times you wonder why people come out initially to start talking about certain things as you say, whistleblower, and then all of a sudden their story changes, or else they fall off the face of the earth and you don't hear or see from them again. And that explains a lot right there from what you just said, why a person would be irrational or change their behavior and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, and these people in these different groups, this information has been emerging very slowly over years, but certainly, of course, more so like in the past year and a half, 2 years. There are certain visual signals or signs or images or kind of handshakes, and even the revealing of this information, these people and turn every human planet into a reptilian planet. And for them, humans are like cows. They're like human resource. Either they serve a use or you get eaten. That's it. That's the whole game, sum total. And sometimes, and I said this to Lisa Harrison once, I'm like, geez, sometimes I feel like a war correspondent reporting on all this stuff, and I'll honestly be very glad when this whole part of my job is over and I can be spending more time about the evolution of this planet, what this transition period of life is going to be like for people on Earth as become more progressively fourth dimensional, and once they are, what are the kinds of things that we're going to experience. But yeah, this whole period of Earth's history of being dominated, controlled, and or used and as a human resource, it's been a dark period for all of us. So I'm glad that it's finally going away, and the game for the reptilians is about to be up, because in summary, at the end of this topic, what they don't fully realize and what they don't want to realize is that their vibration, their unique fourth dimensional vibration is so low that when it comes time for, if you will, the switch to be thrown on this planet, and it finally becomes a higher dimensional, fourth dimensional planet and solar system, their unique energy signature won't be able to tolerate it.
Right.
And their own arrogance gets in the way of them understanding it or even absorbing the reality of that. So they're going to just keep going and try to take out as many people as possible on the way out, like rats on a sinking ship. And we're going to see evidence of that for a while yet, probably, as the few remaining ones try to manipulate and control the powers that be bunch. But it's going down. That ship's going to go down. That's the way that game is going. And I would sincerely advise anybody that's worried about our future, don't worry about it. We have an amazing, amazing, beautiful future coming as a reborn, rejuvenated planet. We really do.
Awesome.
Free and sovereign.
It's so funny. When you started talking about the reptilians, all of a sudden, you were crystal clear up until that moment, and then whatever you were talking about, you were totally scrambled. You could hear it was like somebody was scrambling your vocals, and you couldn't understand it until you ended on, something about Lisa Harrison is where I heard you come in, what you had been talking to her about. And then you talked about the humans being food, I guess, is basically what you were saying.
Wow. Yeah, and and I just heard a really low vibration, deep energy thrum come through.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, people are trying to mess with this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll summarize simply by saying their game is ending soon, and what they don't realize is that the new, higher, lighter vibrational frequency that's coming in very soon to this planet, January 2004. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah, January 2014 rolls along. The reptilians' unique low-frequency signature vibration will not be able to tolerate the vibration, the higher vibration that's coming into this planet. It is their arrogance that prevents them from absorbing and learning the truth of this information, and they will dissipate and disappear and go away, whether they like it or not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
and you know, some people, and I've had a few people ask me this question, like, well, geez, if that's the case, then why has the Andromeda Council expended so much energy to step in and clean off the planet? Well, you know, think about this logically. Would you rather have, I don't know, tens or maybe 100 or so reptilians that are trying to continually control the remaining cabal powers that be Illuminati on the planet? When the switch is being thrown, they're running around for their lives because they know they're all done, and they're going to try to take as many as people as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather deal with, I don't know, tens or maybe 100 or so, or tens of thousands that are all about to die at the same time? I know that answer.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to get into, I know there's some different things that you've talked about in the past, and I just wanted to tell the listeners that some of the questions keep getting repeated over and over to you, and you spend a lot of time re-answering these particular questions. So if people are hearing this for the first time, please go to Tolec's website, and just all the information is archived there. If you want to listen and catch yourself up, so to speak, to where he has been and where he is now, it would be very helpful to him. And with that said, I just want to do one quick thing here before we get into the medical part of it. And I just want to say about the Andromedan Council and their operating structures, their key protocols, their guidelines, and three quick questions in regards to that, Tolec.
Sure.
Do they adhere to the so-called Prime Directive? Do they respect our free will? And do they function in a type of a hierarchy, so to speak?
Okay, I'll take them one at a time. The first one, do they, and I'm doing this, I mean, I have notes, but I'm doing this off of the top of my head. Do they adhere to the Prime Directive? Yes, they do. There are a number of key issues that are raised in almost every Andromeda Council meeting. And when I talk about the Andromeda Council meetings, their standard meetings, we're talking about the ambassadors and the diplomats from the 12 representative planets that are part of the Andromeda Council. So, many of those issues revolve around which planet, okay, we've got this meeting going on, and there's an agenda with a number of items that need to be addressed. We've got, I don't know, 2 planets as an example that want to become part of the Andromeda Council and want to join and participate. So there's like a whole list of criteria that they have to go through. There's a bunch of research that's done. Everything revolves around this topic called the Prime Directive. And primarily, the only time that the Andromeda Council and its aligned planets that have expertise in different areas, including the people of Procyon, get involved in is when there is a planet outside of the Andromeda Council membership that is being abused, maligned, taken advantage of, that is being used as a natural resource, way above and beyond, the norm, to the point where society is threatened, and to the point where other people around the cosmos, around the galaxy or the universe might be threatened as well. And there are a whole number of reasons that focus around this topic, but they only get involved when it gets that difficult, when it gets that severe. And that was one of the reasons that they stepped in, because they looked back. Long story short, there was an event that would have taken place in the future, about 360 years, and they looked back in time to find out what the genesis of that event was. They came back to Earth, Moon, and Mars, saw the Reptilian Alliance and Gray combined alliance agenda and everything that was going on. And if they allowed that agenda to continue, the effects would have been so catastrophic that the whole Milky Way galaxy would have become reptilian. You were talking about the wholesale genocide of the human race in a whole galaxy. They stepped in for that reason. That's reason enough. And the other reason that they stepped in is that with the people of the planet Earth coming upon this time of imminent transition and transformation to becoming a fourth dimensional, higher dimensional solar system and people, that the people of Earth deserved to do this as free and sovereign people, not as a people terrorized and used as a natural resource and controlled and manipulated by the reptilians for so many years. It was just, it's like they're cautious. They are cautious. And because they're cautious, they step in when it is only absolutely necessary, and that's what they did. And that's the best, most comprehensive I can answer to give you about this idea of prime directive. If you'll give me the second and third question again, I appreciate it.
The second question was, do they respect our free will?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The whole idea of why they stepped in, one of those concepts was because we deserve to be free, sovereign people to be able to chart the course of our own lives.
Yep.
To set the path of what our lives are going to be, and to do that without a whole bunch of different economic, monetary controls, restrictions, emotional confusion, and if you will, catastrophic consequences to the people of Earth, because essentially these guys, the reptilians, these are the ones that have been pushing the buttons to cause I don't know about all the wars, but many, many of the wars on different continents over years. So, free and sovereign people, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. The last question I had myself was, do they function in a type of a hierarchy, so to speak? Everything here is a dualistic world that we live in. There's a hierarchy. I understand in these higher realms that it's, in my perspective, there's probably not a hierarchy in the way that we understand it. It's more of a, well, let me just let you answer the question.
Oh, sure. Excuse me. The first thing I'll do is address what we're talking about in terms of hierarchy and who we're addressing. If we're talking about this intergalactic and interstellar and honestly interdimensional governance body of the Andromeda Council, then we are talking about a body that oversees and sets protocol and precedents for people that are 3D, three-dimensional, fourth-dimensional, fifth-dimensional, and some sixth-dimensional. And I mentioned earlier while you were gone about what those protocols and precedences are. Within the council, and here's the relevance, within the council, there are 12 senior members. And they're senior because they've been around for a long time. They are, if you will, the founding members of the Andromeda Council and some additional members in relatively recent years. Why is this relevant? Well, it's relevant because there are star systems that have planets of people, of beings, who contribute to the activities of the Andromeda Council that don't have senior membership positions on the council, but are on the subcommittees and advisory boards. And they play a really valuable role in doing a whole bunch of really valuable work on behalf of the council. A lot of it has to do with review of certain planets as they attempt and desire to become a new member of the council. So in this particular instance, there's seniority. There's senior status and junior status. But if we talk about the people on the primary the people in the primary Andromeda Council biosphere, and the 11 others, the commander, is there seniority? Yeah, he's the guy that's responsible for the whole biosphere. Does he have a senior team? Yeah, he does. He's got 15 people who report to him. And there are a whole bunch of other people, crew members, that total like 50,000 and their families. They all have valuable roles. Now, that having been said, do I ever get the sense that there's any greater than or less than among them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Every person who contributes in whatever way that they contribute to their role on that Andromeda Council biosphere is equally appreciated, equally cherished. And interestingly enough, we just talked about this today. I talked about this topic with Tanya, the vice chairwoman. They, as an example, on her planet, which is Teri in the Miroc star system, they have 12 days in what they might consider to be a week. And they just do it as a way to track things. On the planet Dakota, where the primary Andromeda Council commander is from, where Azar, the chief medical officer, is from, where Tonka is from, they have an 8-day week. On the biosphere out in space, no weeks, no days. They have certain work periods, and they get time off, absolutely. And the whole focus of time off is relaxation, quality of life. And I get the sense, and it was a long conversation with her, I get the sense that it's all about balance. It's very much about balance. Everybody's got a job. Everybody has a valuable job. They do it. They never overwork their people. Things have gotten dicey over the past, year and a half, 2 years of our time because of all the work they've done. They've had to be on their best, at a moment's notice, if you will, because of taking out all the undersea bases. But they have a great quality of life up on this biosphere and up on the other biospheres. But to wander back to center here, it's all about the needs of the many are all important. The needs of the one and the few are all important, and there is no less than or greater than. Everybody is appreciated. That's the short answer to the question. Sure.
Okay.
I know it's a lot.
I really want to get into this medical stuff, but we have 2 questions here. I don't know if you want to take them now or bypass them and go into the medical thing or answer them at the end. It's up to you.
Let's answer all the questions at the end for whatever time we have left over.
Okay. All right, so let's dig into this medical thing here. And so what I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, is how do you see things for humanity in a 4D setting? Or say, for instance, will we be using more energy and light for changing our DNA or disease structures, like using color therapy or color or vibrational healing type of a thing?
Yeah. Answer: yes, yes, and yes. So I'll break it down for you. Yeah, I mean you nailed it right on the head. as fourth dimensional beings, and I'll start with sleep. As fourth dimensional humans, we'll only need like 2.5 to 3 hours of deep sleep. That's about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, which means more time off, more time to do whatever we want to do, whatever our passions are. Also, as fourth dimensional adults, we won't need to eat coarse matter, organic food like we're eating these days. Now, of course, there will be fourth dimensional trees, fourth dimensional vegetables, and from what I understand, there are going to be some, for lack of a better description, fourth dimensional fruit trees. And our fourth dimensional fine matter bodies will be able to eat, swallow, ingest, enjoy food of a variety of sorts, most of which will come from these fourth dimensional fruit trees and or vegetables. Now, as an example, if we want to make some fourth dimensional pizza, we sure can, but we're going to have to use the new foods that the new fruits and vegetables that will be natural for us to be able to absorb. Will we need to eat food? No, we won't. We won't need to eat food as adults. Sunlight, the energy of the planet around us, this will pretty much be able to regenerate us all the time. I do understand that babies, young fourth dimensional children and babies need to eat this kind of protein-based fruits and vegetables for a while. A few years of their very early lives. And then once they get to a certain point, they will go on and be like Earth humans, like Earth human adults, where they won't need food. But in the early years, they will. On to the modalities for healing that you're talking about. Very much like some people are just discovering today. There's the things that you and I are certainly familiar with. There are things called hands-on or Reiki energy healing, but there are other things that they use called sound and light therapy, where they will adjust different frequencies of color, light, and sound to help adjust people's fine matter fourth dimensional bodies. It will all be about energetic healing of a fourth dimensional fine matter energetic body. That's the short summary. I mean, we can explore it in depth some more, but we're going to be completely different human beings. There is going to be a transformation that's going to take place. And, as I've indicated before, we're going to go from being organic, dense matter, three-dimensional bodies to crystal-based molecules and cells, fine matter, if you will, spirit essence bodies. And from the fourth dimension up, I understand that to some degree we are and will become this fine matter essence. And in the course, I believe like in the fifth dimension on up, people can work together. Let's say that there are, 10 or 12 people that are fifth dimensional people from the mid-range, fifth or sixth level and up, and they want to work on exploring a certain race of people on a certain planet, or they want to investigate a certain species of trees or a certain branch of a deer family, if you will, on a particular planet. They can come together in what people call soul groups, and you'll see these little balls of blue light scooting around through the atmosphere. Many times those are not ships. They're fifth dimensional people that have chosen to come together for a little while and work together. for as long as they want, and then when they're done, they break up and they go on. They do whatever they want to do as individual beings. The ability to come together as a soul group is by choice. It's not by dictate. It's by, hey, let's get together. You know, you, Fred, Jeff, Phil, and you know, we can all work together and go investigate this species of deer. Okay, let's go to Earth. Whoosh, off they go. So it's going to be a very, very different life to be a higher dimensional being. And to get back to center, will we have fourth dimensional human bodies that look like us? Yeah, we will. We'll be, I want to say on average for women, like 6'2", 6'4". For men, 7'6", 7'8". Because of the fine essence matter density, we're going to be a lot lighter. So think that our weight will be 5 to 10% of what it is today. So a guy that's, I don't know, like 5'10", maybe 154, 155 pounds, he may be 10, 12 pounds at most. And the higher you go up in dimension, the less your weight becomes, because there's less mass and less density. Yeah, I said that right. Yep. Higher up, less mass, less density, less weight.
Right.
So it's going to be amazing, an amazing experience to take on these new fourth dimensional forms.
Yeah. Okay. My next question then for you is, will there simply be less dis-ease by virtue of being in a higher dimension and having like a lighter body mass and more photons, so to speak, or more light within us?
Wow. You know what? That's a good question. I've never asked the question from this perspective. I can give you the answer from the question that's been asked many times by many people in different ways. People who have, especially guys in the various Gulf Wars, in Afghanistan, the guys that have lost shoulders and fingers and hands and arms and legs. Also, people with different palsies, muscular dystrophy, syndromes, bad eyes, bad teeth. All of that stuff is going away because your three-dimensional body, and I'm going to use an expression I've used before, in the blink of an eye, in the snap of a finger, in one moment in time, you're going to transmute from being a three-dimensional organic person to being a four-dimensional light-based, higher vibrational person. So all of those attributes of three-dimensional self are going to go away. All of those organic attributes of three-dimensional self are going to transform and transmute, and you're going to become fourth-dimensional. Spirit, fine essence matter, not organic matter. All those diseases, all those losses of limbs goes away. Everything that I've learned about healing and a fourth-dimensional person has to do with, like as an example, some part of your fourth-dimensional body, some zone, if you will, of it, maybe like your upper thigh, has a weakened area. Or maybe, I don't know, your head is experiencing a headache for some reason. They will use the modalities of sound, light, and color. They will attenuate, adjust those different frequencies. And these are the medical, the healthcare professional people, because they know which frequencies will help in which areas, and energetically they will help to rebuild that particular area of your body into a healthy state again. Now, all of that having been said, I've never heard them talk about diseases as fourth-dimensional people. Never in that context. Never in that context at all. So you've learned as much as I know right now about how they handle healthcare and the dispensing of healthcare. And, maybe you can touch on that one.
Well, this is your show, so I'm going to just let you do your thing. But one thing I'd like to add to what you were saying was when you were talking about the amputees and things like that, what I've learned is, at least energetically, and I've said this on prior shows, is I think that things are superimposed here in 3D from a higher dimension because we're in this holographic universe that we perceive with our five senses. And that explains people that have the phantom pain, that have, say, a bilateral amputee or even unilateral, or having foot pain or toe pain when they don't have a foot. And energetically, the leg, the foot is still there. It's not perceived in this dimension within this density. But as we raise in a vibratory frequency, we also go up in density. And therefore, I believe that we're able to regain that leg or that limb. That's in my perspective, though.
That's interesting. I've up until now I've never thought of it that way, but that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense why somebody would feel, if you will, that phantom foot, even though the foot's gone. The totality of that person's fine matter essence body, that person's spiritual core essence, is still there.
Right.
That physical part may be gone, but that person's spiritual essence is still there. So,
well, scientifically speaking, what was his name? He was a Russian scientist. I think his name was Kurlian Simeon or something like that. But he did this electro photographing, and he took a picture of an apple, and then he cut the picture. Well, let me go back. First he started out by, he took a picture of a leaf, and it showed the aura, or the auric field, the energetic field around this leaf. He cut the leaf in half, took another picture of it with the electrophotography, and it showed the entire leaf again, even though there was only half of it there. So
wow,
the whole is within the part, holographically, and that explains our holographic universe. But to go on to what I started out with, he then later took a picture of an apple, cut this apple picture up into 50 pieces, took a piece of the picture of the apple, and somehow put some kind of laser light through it, which showed the entire apple again. So again, in this holographic universe that we all live in here in 3D, the whole is within the part. And like I always say, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, basically. Because,
right.
We only see within the light spectrum just a small fraction in the center, and on each side, it goes way out. The wavelengths of energy, or we can't perceive it with our own human vision. And, it goes out one way and there's ultraviolet light. It goes the other way, it's infrared and X-rays and all these other things. And just because we can't perceive them don't mean they don't exist. So, this is part of my lecture that I've created, and I would like to start pouring and telling people about for those who need a scientific basis. We already have the proof right in front of us, and it's been kind of hidden from us. So when you do all of the research and you put the pieces to the puzzle together, and as you say, let me bring this back to center. We're talking about medicine here. So to make your mind understand or wrap your head around what we're talking about tonight, we do have scientific evidence of this. It's just been hidden from us.
This is interesting. I've yet to be able to talk to a healthcare professional, and that's what you are, about this topic from this perspective, because it actually dovetails to some concepts that I've learned over time, which have been, if you will, reinforced by the people on the Andromeda Council, and specifically by Ambassador Tonka, who's their spiritual sage. This topic is not about him. This topic is about what he has reinforced in me and what he's told me. And essentially that is, and of course other people have said this in different ways, but that is, we are not, most of us here on Earth believe that we get born. And when we get born, coming through our mothers, through a natural birth, or through C-section, we come into this world as a human, and we have a human soul. But it's actually, from everything that I've learned, just the opposite. All life in this universe first and foremost is energetically. It's energetic.
Right.
Sorry, it's energetic. So more importantly, to express this differently, we are not a human body that contains a soul with a unique spiritual essence. We are, in fact, a human body that has a unique spiritual essence. That's our own unique vibratory signature, and we have our own unique look from when we were originally born, energetically, thousands of years ago. We are that person that is wearing a human biological suit.
That's it.
That's a very different perspective. And it's also highly likely that, and I don't know what the real number is because I don't know everything, it's also highly likely that most of us on planet Earth have chosen to come here over and over again to have as many 3D human experiences as possible, to learn as much as we need to learn before we decide to go on and do something else.
That's it.
It's a way of learning. Taking on the 3D human body is a way of learning some really tough lessons sometimes.
Absolutely.
Again, to bring this back to center, we are much more, we're much more of a soul with a unique human vibratory core essence signature that happens to be wearing a human biological suit.
Right. And the way I always say it is that we're spiritual beings living out a human experience. And we live thousands of lives. For those who believe we only come into this one life, and as the religions teach us that, you either get it right the first time, you go to heaven or hell. I mean, this is another thing, like we started out with the show with Michael Tolec, we were talking about money as a control. There's so many other controlling factors that run our lives, and we really don't even know it, or we're just waking up to it. And one of them is the certain belief systems that are out there. And I don't want to knock anybody's religion, but it is what it is. We're spiritual beings living out a human experience for simply that, the experience. And we just don't know how powerful of a being that we truly are. And we're now waking up to it. And those who don't want to buy into that, that's okay. You're in your own perfection. However, those people that are at that vibratory frequency probably won't be tuning into this tonight.
Well, yes, you're right. There's a different perspective here, which dovetails into what we're talking about, and this is worth talking about. It's not the theological perspective. I know that you're going to appreciate what I'm about to say here. It is one of the areas of control of this society that people euphemistically call like the powers that be, and/or like the corporate entertainment military industrial complex. Well, one sector of that complex, one segment of that complex is the health. Sorry, but I'm going to go here. Is not the healthcare industry per se, but the pharmaceutical industry, and they have done and continue to do everything in their power to keep people hooked on the fact that they think they need certain drugs.
Right.
When in reality, some of those drugs, I'm not saying all, but some of those drugs are likely killing people's human bodies and doing more harm to them than reality should dictate. In some ways, probably shortening their lives.
Right.
And and there are all sorts of. When I spent some early time in the administrative part of the healthcare industry, I learned firsthand about the procedures, utilization review, quality management, cost containment, capitation of the dollar. It's all about perpetuating a system to keep itself going. And it's not about the health of people. If you really want to be healthy, at least as been told by Tonka and many other people that I've talked to with the Andromeda Council, go out, find a place that has clean air. Go outside, listen to the birds sing, watch butterflies fly, smell flowers, stand still long enough to hear the quiet gurgling of a brook. You will feel the stress of your body start to dissipate. You will feel the noise in your brain, in your mind, start to quiet. This is some of the best health care out there possible, and it's free. Doesn't cost a dime.
Right. And take your shoes off.
Yeah, that's right. Take your shoes off, walk through the grass. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
The flip side. The flip side of that, Tolec, is that thought becomes reality. And that's how powerful of a being we are. We just don't believe in it because we've been told differently since we've been, influenced as children with our educational systems, with the media, on and on and on. But sometimes, many times actually, the belief of the people that are coming for the care is in that if they believe they need a particular pill to heal themselves, and I get this all the time. They'll come in and they'll be like, I want my Z-Pack. And I'll say, but it's viral. It's not going to do anything. And here's the thing. If you don't give it to them, they get sicker and sicker and sicker. You give them the Z-Pack, even though you know it's viral, and a day later they're calling you, thanking you, saying, oh, my God, does that stuff really work? Right.
And you're saying that because their consciousness, their own individual consciousness, is selling themselves on the idea that they need it. Therefore, they need it.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's certainly self-responsibility. But for the other aspect about this is for the people that, if you will, sit in front of their televisions at night and watch the nightly news and or watch commercials. Now, I've only seen these things sporadically when I go back east to visit mom or sister, family members, things like that, where I'll catch the news on rare occasion. I am horrified and astounded at the quantity of drug commercials that are pushed onto people via the pharmaceuticals. Now, you and I we were young once. We were kids. Do you ever remember the level or degree of pushing of pharmaceutical products on the American public through television when we were kids?
No,
think about it.
Nor do I remember the particular types of commercials that are actually acceptable. Like, some of the I don't want to really mention names, but some of
no, not necessary.
The men products that are on there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they are quite seductive, and if you take this pill, then this is the woman that you're going to get, and all these other types of things. So I get asked all the time from young guys. Like, I have people that are really in their 20s that really don't need it, and they say, I really don't need it, but if I can get this girl, then this is what I want to take,
Yeah, it's and that's part of yet one additional way that the pharmaceutical industry, as part of the healthcare industry, is that it has the money, so it's pushing a product to make themselves more money, nothing less. And it's no different than the entertainment industry releasing certain UFO war movies, bombing the planet again, aliens invading. Why? Keep the public entertained, but more importantly, keep them in fear. It's just another method of control. That's the point.
That's it.
Just another method of control. And when we were kids, what did we hear about? St. Joseph's or Bear, Aspen for Children. That was it. That's all we heard about.
Yep.
And today it's like, do you have twitching leg syndrome? What? Go outside, take a walk. Your leg twitching? Get up out of the chair, go take a walk. Do you have vibrating forehead syndrome? What are you talking about? You got a headache. Have your wife walking back to you, put her hands on your shoulders, maybe kiss your neck, whatever, but give yourself, have your wife give you a neck massage and a shoulder massage. You know what? Your headache's going to go away, and your sex life is going to get better. You don't need drugs. You don't need drugs for these things. I mean, you know this. The diseases that have been created that don't exist.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You got me on my soapbox, but geez.
Well, you know, from a higher perspective, there's not one disease that's on this planet that really, well, maybe I should say it a different way. There's not one person on this planet that has a disease that can't heal themselves. And there's nothing wrong with anybody on the planet as far as a healthcare point of view goes, but they believe in it, or they've been told it, they've been influenced by TV, their parents have told them that, oh, you're going to get hypertension because everybody in the family has it, and eventually you're going to get it too. And then thought becomes reality. Over and over and over, they've been told. So when they hit 40, that key moment, or 50, whenever everybody else in the family, all of a sudden they go, and guess what? They have it. But, you know, to try to explain this to individuals who don't want to hear it or not open to hear it, they don't believe in it. It sounds too magical or mystical or woo-woo. And it's amazing how open, though, you know, whenever I discuss these things with my patients, how open they are. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, I get that. If you put it into a specific, but we're not trained that way in medicine. I had to go off on my own because of the questions that I had in my own mind since, well, basically since birth on, you know. And so, you know, it's unfortunate that the medical system is the way it is right now, but it's subject to change. And as we transition into what we're talking about, into a higher dimension. Now, I know you and I have different definitions of the 4D, 5D thing, but we're basically saying the same thing. We're transitioning into a higher dimension.
Right. And you know what? We may be using different words, but the expression of it and the details that we're talking about are the same.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I wanted to go back to this topic about when people get to a certain age and they start thinking that maybe because certain things were in their family, you know, diabetes, hypertension, whatever, certainly they can institute on their own lifestyle changes. But now we're talking about self-responsibility.
Right.
And now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, and I'm going to talk about, and I love them dearly, but, you know, my mom and many of our parents' generation. And here we go. And again, I love them dearly, but, you know, I'll go home and visit, and there's the little pouch sitting on the kitchen table with how many pill bottles, prescription medicines for her heart, for her blood pressure, for a number of things. And you know what? She's actually taking vitamins. But I'm going off track here. The point I was trying to make is that generation, sort of like Korea and World War II back, and there's still some of them around, they have given their lives over to their doctors.
Right.
Oh, well, my doctor this, my doctor that. Yep. Sylvia, what do you think? Oh, well, my doctor says, and we ought to do this, and my doctor. They've given over the responsibility of their own health care to be reactive to their doctors instead of being proactive. You know, what can I do as Helen or Margaret or Pete or Phil to have a happy, fulfilled, healthy, productive life? That has nothing to do with your doctor. It has to do with the choices you make.
Right.
You know, not drinking a lot, not smoking, going on walks, swimming, playing whatever you play, getting exercise, breathing fresh air. These are like no-brainer things, but that generation's having a tough time being proactive about taking responsibility for their health. And I don't blame them. It's the way they were raised.
Yep. And you know what? That's my biggest message to all my patients, and whenever I'm speaking on radio shows, when I'm being interviewed, is people need to take a responsibility for their own health care and take their power back. And it's not just with medicine, it's with everything, you know, the banking system and everything else. But tonight we're talking about medicine. And when my patients come into me, I tell them, I'm like, here's what I know. Here are your options. You can do this, or this. And then when they ask me, what do you think? I put it right back on them and say, listen, this is your choice. What do you want? Because only you know you and your body. I mean, there are people to guide you along the way, but you shouldn't be led, so to speak. You should make the decisions for yourself, basically.
I'll tell you what. You and I have not had this conversation. I have a lot of respect for you for standing next to your patients and looking them in the eye and giving them the respect that you do by saying, hey, it's your body. This is your choice. I can give you these options. Only you will know which one will be best for you.
Right. Well, thank you.
And that's, I do. I really commend you for that.
Well, here's the flip side to this, too. I'll give them various options, like the natural way of healing, such as the proper foods or diet and exercise, and or you can take this pill for your high cholesterol, which I don't recommend. I'd rather you try it the natural route. And a lot of times they'll say, hey, doc, I know me, and I'm not going to listen to any diet or exercise. Just give me the pill. And for them, I give them the pill because, that's their thought process. That's their choice. And, we talked about free will earlier. Everybody should have their own decision-making. And that's why I'm still working in medicine. I think you and I have talked about this. It took me months and months to go back to it. Like, I closed my practice in June, and, I had 3 urgent care centers going at one time. Plus, I did drug and alcohol rehab for 5 years. And, I quit. I got away from it all from June until the second week of March. And I really had to do some soul searching because I know that there's so much more out there for people, like this energy healing and hypnotherapy and the more natural approaches. But there are still people that need my help. I think that I'm basically here to help transition medicine, and that somebody has to be there on the front lines to show people and to help raise the consciousness and give options other than you will listen to what I say or you're out of my practice and you can go to another doctor, which that's not the way it should be.
Yeah. If you're interested, I'd like to share with you a story from something that I had happen to me today, a conversation I had earlier in the day with a woman, and we were talking about. This is actually relevant. We were talking about a 2-year-old little girl who had a rare form of cancer. And in this particular case, the cancer was a malignant tumor at the top of the spine, the base of the neck area. And the doctors were like, all right, here's the normal drill. Radiation, chemotherapy. Of course, she loses all of her hair. Now, keep in mind, this girl's only 2 years old.
Right.
So they bombard her with chemo and radiation, and essentially, the doctors basically, and I honestly don't know the name of the clinic or the specialty practice, so I can't even reveal it because I don't know it. But essentially, they patted the parents on the head and the little girl, and they said, go home. We've done as much as we can for you, and we hope you're going to be okay. The cancer came back into remission. The cancer came out of a brief period of remission back into the little girl's body, and the parents chose to go somewhere else to get some alternative therapy, some alternative healing therapy. And quite honestly, I don't remember exactly right now what it was. The point to the story is the little girl died 2 years later. And the little girl did not die because of the cancer. Apparently, when the parents took the little girl to these people that provided alternative modalities and they got rid of the cancer completely, the little girl's body was so, these aren't technical terms, but it was so abused, so radiated and so toxic from all of the radiation and the chemotherapy, that little girl's now 4-year-old body died. It was too toxic. It could not recover. I'm like, wow, what a sad story, because if for some reason these parents had known about this alternative modality first, and there's no judgment here. I'm not blaming the parents. I'm just making a point that if she hadn't gone through what accepted medicine is today, of this cruel treatment of chemotherapy and radiation, she wouldn't be dead today because the cancer itself was gone.
Well, I have
this is wrong.
Yeah, well, I have something to say on this because there's other variables we didn't talk about. And
sure,
when you have a young child like that develops cancer, you're like, how can this be? But then you, especially even younger than that, but what you have to realize is we all have soul contracts that we've talked about this earlier, that we've come in here to experience certain life's experience, and her soul may have come in here for that particular experience. And again, I don't think things happen accidentally. I think there was a purpose there. And by you telling this story, raises awareness to other people out there, for one. And that, to me, that's one of the blessings in this child's life and also her death, is that she became a teacher by becoming the example. And
sure. And by the way, you're absolutely right about when a soul comes to this planet over and over again and chooses to have certain experiences.
Right.
I'm sure there were some very good reasons why that situation evolved with her the way it did.
But I just not to take away from her story. I'm just trying to add to it to say, hey, this is an awesome example, and to honor her for that participation in helping raise people's awareness in the healing process, and also to note that what we're talking about tonight is moving into a fourth dimensional reality or higher, and that a lot of the things that we're experiencing now, this was our opportunity to experience them now, but I think it's going to be over the next several months to several years, that opportunity is going to be gone, and not only will we not have to experience it, I don't know that we would be able to, just because of the way the vibratory frequency is raising, and to me, that's a blessing in and of itself. I mean, of course, we came here for soul growth and soul lessons, but also, I'd be glad to see medicine change and all the other things that are supposed to be changing as well, as we've been discussing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that any time that each of us has an opportunity to grow through any experience, ask what is going on here beside the obvious. What's the bigger picture? Why am I having this experience? And be ready to accept the answers, whatever they are. That happens over and over and over again in our lives. Every time that happens, it's a new stage of growth, a new stage of emotional awareness, emotional maturity, and therefore spiritual growth.
Right.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay. So we have about 25 minutes left here, and I'd like to bring Teri in.
Sure.
I know that I scheduled you for an hour, and I wanted to give you a little more time here tonight. Quite frankly, I wasn't aware that I could go this long, or I'd be doing this more often. Now that we did it, the next few times that I'm having these shows, I guess I'm going to do longer shows because people, quite frankly, are asking me to go longer. And if you have an opportunity in the future to come on as a double header, so to speak, as we did tonight, I would be glad to have you, and happy, and I'm sure the listeners would too, to have you back in the future if you have any time available and if you're open to the possibility.
Okay. I need to respond back by saying the first half of that sentence, I couldn't hear anything. It was like completely blocked out. So What I did hear was, hey, Tolec, if you'd like to come back, we'd love to have you. But I don't know what the first half of that sentence was.
Okay, well, it wasn't really important, but basically you got the gist of it. In the near future, like even next Sunday or the following Sunday, I'm doing these double headers now, and if there's a time or opportunity that you would like to come on so we can continue this discussion, or if there's any updates, I'd love to have you back, and I'm sure the listeners would too.
Joe, with you, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as long as I'm doing this work, sure. Not a problem.
Awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we touched on a lot of things tonight, and I know we were going to focus on one or the other, but I really think it was important to kind of mix it up a little bit and allow people to kind of showcase you and to show that you have more knowledge than what you've put out up to this point, which I knew you did. And then once I talked to you prior to this show, I knew this was going to be an awesome show. And thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. Quite honestly, and I mean this sincerely, I'm here to help. I'm here to share as much as I know based on what I'm learning from my Andromeda Council contacts, my friends up in the biosphere. But as people have figured out, I'm a private person, and it's not about me. You know, I'm not here to talk about my experiences, but where my experiences can help and they can shed light on a bigger picture in terms of what has happened and why. You know, why banking is busted, the fact that it's been busted for years, it's been corrupt at the highest levels for years, about how the healthcare system works, and it doesn't always work to our benefit as 3D humans. I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have, sure.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. And I have two questions here that came in, and if you could, I think you can answer them relatively quickly. Question for Tolec. I'm just going to read this verbatim here.
Sure.
If a 3D human has had hip replacements or metal pins in their body, is this a problem when going from 3D to 4D? And this comes from Mr. Edwin, and hopefully I say this right, Swinnerton, Stoke-on-Trent, England.
Okay, well, I'll just briefly refer back to what we were talking about earlier when we were describing the transformation in that single moment of time, snap of a finger, blink of an eye. The all organic gross matter, you know, these organic bodies, Joe, that you work on, you know, X number of days a week, they will all transform into fine matter, essence, crystalline-based bodies. And so to speak more plainly, the physical 3D body that you have will no longer exist. You will have a higher dimensional, fine matter, spirit essence body. So the short answer to that question is, don't worry about your physical hips and the pins. It's a non-issue.
Right.
Next
and
question.
I just want to say that I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's a non-issue. Goes away, literally.
Okay.
And you won't have bad hips anymore.
All right. So this next one comes from Rhonda Jennings, and she missed the beginning of the show, but she was asking, has he found out about the chemtrails? If so, are they used to block the positive energies coming in or to ready the planet for another reptilian environment? Thanks.
Oh, boy. All right. I am not an expert on chemtrails. There's my disclaimer.
Okay.
The only thing that I've learned about chemtrails is there's a guy I know locally here who can see interdimensionally. Now, out of this 3D body that I have when I'm walking around conscious, I can't see interdimensionally. This particular guy can. And I'll refer you, do you remember when we were kids and one of the very first, I know I'm a little older than you, but remember the very first video games? There was one called Pac-Man?
Yeah.
Had this little round creature, and he would gobble up other stuff and other things. He would gobble, 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 and just chew things up. Well, as a metaphor, this guy, at least a couple of times, has looked up in our Arizona skies and seen chemtrails, what people call chemtrails, or long vapor trails from jets. And he didn't give an exact description, but he gave me a description of a kind of creature or a ship that was in back of these chemtrails going gobble, 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 gobble.
Yep.
So, eating up these trails or whatever, vapor, and taking care of the issue. And at some level, he used telepathy to ask the question about, what are these guys doing? He goes, they're negating any of the problems that these chemtrails are causing. They're just like, chomp, eating it up. You're just eating it up. I'm like, wow, cool story. And this guy's pretty talented in terms of being able to see interdimensionally and speak with interdimensional beings. So I'm like, okay, that's a pretty credible source. That's my best answer to that question. As to reptilians, I've talked enough about them and their waning days, and their time on this planet is coming due. Period. End of story.
Okay. All right. So the healthcare thing, the 4D thing, the transition. Everybody out there is probably wondering how soon this will occur, especially those who have a disease state that could potentially end their current physicalness. Just 30-second answer. What do you got?
Okay. A lot of people are talking about December 21, 2012, the time when all things are going to change. No. December 21st, 2012 will be significant in that there will be a uniquely higher, massive vibration frequency signature, a bathing of the solar system and this planet in higher dimensional energy. Yes, that will happen. Will that be the moment in time to trigger and transmute the transformation of the 3D human caterpillar to becoming a 4D human butterfly? No. We're looking at a transitional period of the remaining part of 2012 for a variety of things that will happen on this planet, raising consciousness, raising awareness, raising vibration of people all across the planet. And we're talking about most of 2013, that all of those things are going to happen to this planet. January 2014, we become higher dimensional, as the guys have told me, fourth dimensional beings, fourth dimensional human beings. So we're looking at January 2014, not before then.
But there is a transition process where we're raising right now, as Mother Earth is raising. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the short answer is now, through the period of December 21st of this year, which will be yet another burst of higher energy, and all of 2013 is a transformation period. Only when we get, at least the guys upstairs, my contacts have told me, only when we get to 2014 will we then become fully functioning fourth dimensional fine matter people.
Okay.
That's the elevator ride version.
Awesome. And you know what? Again, I want to thank you for coming on the show here. And again, hopefully we can have you back. And would you like to give out your website or contact information so people can learn more of your work?
Oh, sure. It's the website is Andromeda Council. In this case, Council is COUNCIL.com. People can contact me with questions by using their send message button from their YouTube channel account. And they can write to Tolec, T-O-L-E-C, with a capital T, and then from, F-R-O-M, and then the word Dakote, D-A-K-O-T-E. And that's where I answer all of the questions that the hundreds of people write to me every week.
Awesome.
But yes, that's how to get in touch with me.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch with you to see if we can't get you back on the show next week or whenever you have time. And I want to also thank Teri for hanging on the line here for us and yielding her time so that we could discuss this a little bit further. And if the listeners want to hang on the line, we got several callers on the switchboard here. But those who are listening, hang on, because Teri is a deep channel. She's going to be channeling the Andromedan. We're going to bring her on in just a second. And again, thank you, Tolec, for coming on, and it was a great show.
Okay, my pleasure. I'll just keep listening. You've got another 15 minutes, and I'll listen with everybody else.
You listen in. If you have any questions for me to ask Teri through the Andromedan Council or where, I'm not sure exactly who she's going to be channeling, but it's somebody, a group from the Andromedan. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My only question would be, and this is more of a broad question than anything else. Will Teri be channeling people from a homeworld in the Andromeda galaxy?
You know what? I'll ask her that whenever she comes on.
Okay. All right. Then I'll get off, or at least I'll shut up, and you can keep the show going.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too. Talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Teri, do we got you on the line? Are you there? We're having some technical difficulties here. How about hanging up and calling back in for me? This whole show here tonight, not surprisingly, but because of the information that's coming through, I don't know if there's anybody out there that's messing with us or if it's just a glitch, but we're going to have Teri call back in, and whenever I see her come up on the switchboard here, I'm going to bring her in, and she's going to be channeling the Andromedan, I don't want to say council, but it's the Andromedans is who she's channeled in the past, and I hope to get her on here soon, and she'll be actually able to answer some questions as well. So let me see if I can get her on the line here. I see there's a bunch of people on the switchboard also. If you just hang in there, let me just see if I can get her on the line. And in the meantime, I might pull up a caller here just to see if you have any questions that I could answer for you. And please just hang in here while we see if we can get Teri on the line. All right, so I'm going to see if I can get caller with the area code 631. I'm going to bring you on and see if you have any questions.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, is this area code 631?
Yes, hi. My name is Kim from New York. How are you?
New York. I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to listen to you and Tolec. Thank you, Tolec. And thank you, Dr. Marra. I agree completely with everything you've said. Such a pleasure to hear a doctor that's of higher consciousness, and it's just, I can't even begin. I wish you lived on Long Island. But,
I've heard these types of things, and it's, thank you. It's gratifying. And you know what? Hang in here for 1 second, okay? I'm going to bring Teri on. I see that she's on, but I'm going to keep you on too, okay?
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Okay, Teri, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, and you know what? We only have, unfortunately, 11 minutes left here, so I'm going to ask you if you could bring in the Andromedans and just kind of, get into that place and space and allow them to come through. And maybe we could get the question from the caller from New York while you're getting prepared. Okay. I'm sorry, what was your name?
My name is Kim. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Kim. And
no problem. I did have a question for Tolec, but maybe either one of you could answer this as well. Tolec often talks about when we transition in January of 2014 that if you're alive on this planet with a heart, you will transition. And I recently lost my mom and my grandmother, and, people just seem to be passing all around. So I wonder about those who have died, especially this year. Will they transition? Will we still see them. I've often heard that the manipulation from the reptilians has gone into the astral as well and has manipulated us in our transitioning and through our going through reincarnation process as well. So I just wonder about our dearly, past ones, especially recently. If you guys could enlighten us on that. And anything else you may want to say. And I really just want to thank you so much, Dr. Marra, and I will definitely be following you. And Tolec, thank you so much. I follow all of your work, and I'll be emailing you as well. My name is Kim Zamarthi. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And
you're welcome.
I'm going to just say to you that as we talked about in the show, everything energetically, we're raising a vibratory frequency, and in my personal opinion, the Earth is already raising, and she's already going, almost into a spiral upward, and bringing us with her if we so choose. And the astral realm is no different. I think that we're all souls are going to be liberated as this vibratory frequency raises. And those who have gone before us, that was their soul's path, and they will be liberated just as many of the people on this planet will. But I'm going to ask Teri to come in, and if you want to pick up on that.
Thank you.
Yes. This is based upon the natural course of a directive. This is prior to what we call the connections between all sources of energy. When we continue to transition in different forms, they are all in what you call an energetic body, just as you are in an energetic body in form in a carbon base. Although that carbon base is transitioning as you move towards this new evolution. So all those that are out of the carbon-based form also transition as well. It is everything that is before you is a creation of energy that is brought forth for you to become an example or an accredited sound light vibration. So when you see your parents or your loved ones, and you understand them as what you see them in your third dimensional reality, it is only the creation that you created with that energy. Does this help you?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim, for calling in.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I'll keep listening. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. All right. Our next caller is, and we only have like 6 minutes left, unfortunately, here. So I'm going to take the next caller with the area code 916. Let me just 916. Are you there?
I am. Hey, thank you very much. I want to thank Tolec for the fine work that he does. Doctor, I was wondering if you're familiar with a book called Dr. Mary's Monkey.
I am not.
Okay, it's a very interesting book. It was related to polio vaccinations and how they were aware that it was also contaminated with the cancer virus and how it affected millions and millions of people. And they knew this, and it was a lot of this work when research was done down at Tulane University. But anyway, that's been kind of a passion of mine, and I appreciate what you say about people taking responsibility for their own health care, taking their power back. But I also want to say, and I'd like to get your opinion, I think doctors need to do that too. I think healthcare providers need to take their industry back from the pharmaceutical companies, back from all those other entities that really not in the populace's best interest.
Right.
It's tough. It's tough though because I've been kind of in this research for a long time independently as best as I could, and I've learned some things that I have benefited from, but it's a tough sell because people are locked into the power of doctors, the medical community, and I think they need to hear more from healthcare providers that there's other alternatives. I read books, this will be the last I say because I know your time is short. I had read books that was written in the 30s about cancer cures, and of course we know what they do to these people. But anyway, that's enough out of me. I just want you to know I appreciate you, and I'll shut up and listen.
No, thank you so much. And you're right, I have 4 minutes left, so I want to answer your question here. I haven't been posed that question or that insight, but you're right. The medical community should band together and take medicine back, so to speak. That's a great thought. I never thought of it myself. And so that's a great point. However, I would like to say some of the reasons why medicine is practiced the way it is because there's a standard of care that's set forth by organizations such as the AMA. And when you go off label, so to speak, and when you're writing prescriptions or doing things that are outside the norm, you set yourself up for litigation. And there's a few brave people out there that are doing what they know is right for the populace. But I just, in all fairness, I wanted to give credit to the physicians that were never trained in this, and I actually found all this information out on my own. So I really appreciate that insight that you have, and all the listeners who are out there to listen to what you have to say. I mean, I'll be pondering that. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for calling in.
And
I'm going to stick with you.
Oh.
Go ahead, the Andromedans. Could you please speak on that?
Well, actually, it's me, Joe.
Oh, okay.
I still have the presence. Although I have to say at the same time, a lot of this is changing. Medicine is changing, and it's people like yourself, and it's people. It's the energy alone that is creating this change in medicine. So it's happening, and because everything is going so rapid right now, and it's happening fast. I mean, we have a lot of the alternative approaches that there are doctors and there are nurse practitioners and nurses that are all thinking on the same lines of making these changes and are tired of the way medicine is. They just don't know how to get out of that loop totally. Right. You just had the courage to be able to speak for them. And so now what they're doing is they're sliding these in through acupuncture and things like that.
Okay. Well, I want to give
all of that stuff.
Yeah, we only have like a minute left, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would want to give you the opportunity to give out your website, to give messages to people, your healing modalities such as hypnotherapy, your energy work, your channeling work. You're going to be interrupted here probably in 4 seconds, so let me just...
And that's perfect. That's perfectly okay. It was a pleasure listening to Tolec. Okay. I related to a lot of everything that he was speaking. My website is www.holistichealthalliance.com.
www.holistical.com. Okay.
Right.
I only got like 30 seconds left, so thank you, Tolec, for being on. And thank you, Teri. I want to get you back on also, but because I'm limited to time here, again, thank everybody for coming on the show. Next week, Sunday, May 13th, Dr. Nick and Reverend Linda Martin join me to discuss ego versus spirit and the importance of blending these aspects of ourselves rather than nullifying the ego altogether. What does transformation or transcendence actually mean? Does everyone and everything go through this process? Tune in as we discuss the possibilities. Until next time, I'm Dr. Marra signing off for A Guiding Light.